The morning they told me I was going to die poor. I was wearing the same floral dress I wore on my wedding day. 41 years of marriage. A man worth $50 million, and my own son, my flesh and blood, stood in that cold, white office and said, "Mom, you're not getting a single dime." He was smiling when he said it. I didn't cry. I just nodded, because I already knew something he didn't. My name is Patricia Holden. I'm 63 years old. I live in Naperville, Illinois, a quiet suburb outside Chicago, where the lawns are green and the neighbors smile and nobody talks about money, but money? Money was everything in my marriage. I married Richard Holden in 1983. He was 27. I was 22. He had big dreams and $20 in his pocket. I had a nursing degree and enough faith in him to last a lifetime. We built everything together. I worked double shifts at Rush University Hospital while Richard started his first logistics company out of our garage. I packed his lunch. I raised our son, Daniel. I skipped vacations. I skipped sleep. I skipped myself, for 30 years, so that Richard could become the man he became. By 2010, Holden Logistics had contracts with 3 of the biggest retail chains in America. By 2019, it was worth over $50 million, and by 2021, Richard asked me for a divorce. He didn't do it alone. That's the part that broke me open. Her name was Cassandra. She was 34. She worked in his marketing department. She drove a white Tesla and wore perfume that probably cost more than my car payment. Richard sat me down at the kitchen table, the same table where I helped Daniel with his homework, where I hosted every Thanksgiving, where I drank my coffee every single morning for 29 years, and he told me he was in love with someone else, just like that. No warning. No remorse. Just the facts, like he was reading a business memo. But here's the part that really twisted the knife. Daniel, my son, took his father's side. Immediately. Without hesitation. He called me that same night and said, "Mom, Dad deserves to be happy. You need to let him go." I didn't hear from him for 3 months after that, and when I finally did hear from him again, it was because his new wife, Tiffany, needed something from me. A signature on some old tax document. They didn't call to check on me. They called because I was useful. That was the moment I understood that I and this new version of my family, I was furniture. Something to be moved aside when it was no longer needed. The divorce was finalized in October 2021. My attorney was kind but underprepared. Richard's lawyers were a team of 6 from a firm in downtown Chicago. They were expensive, aggressive, and very, very good. I walked out of that marriage with the house, which had a mortgage, and a settlement that barely covered 18 months of living expenses. No spousal support. Richard's attorneys argued that I was employable and not financially dependent. They used my old nursing license against me. They made 30 years of sacrifice sound like nothing. I went back to nursing at 61 years old. Night shifts. 12 hours on my feet. Coming home to an empty house, heating up soup alone, watching the news until I fell asleep on the couch. Daniel and Tiffany would occasionally invite me to dinner. But I noticed how Tiffany looked at me. Like I was a problem. Like my presence at the table made the meal less enjoyable. One evening, I'll never forget this, Tiffany said to me, "Patricia, you really should think about downsizing. That house must be a lot to manage alone." She said it sweetly. But we both knew what she meant: get smaller. Take up less space. Disappear. I smiled and passed the breadbasket, but inside, something was hardening. Richard died in March 2023. Heart attack. Sudden. He was 67 years old. I found out through a Facebook post, not a phone call. Not a text. A Facebook post, from Cassandra, with a black and white photo of him and the words, "Forever in my heart." Daniel called me 2 days later. Not to grieve together. Not to share the weight of losing a man we had both loved, in different ways, for different reasons. He called to tell me about the will. "Dad left everything to Cassandra and to me," he said. His voice had a careful, rehearsed tone to it. "Mom, I just want to be honest with you. There's nothing there for you. Dad made sure of that. You should hear it from me before the lawyers contact you. Then Tiffany got on the phone. I could hear her breathing in the background, and she said, "Patricia, it's probably best if you just accept this gracefully." I hung up. I sat in my kitchen for a long time, then I called a number I had saved in my phone 2 years ago and never used. The number belonged to a woman named Margaret Chen. She was an estate and probate attorney in Chicago. A friend of a friend had mentioned her once. I had written her name down in my little notebook and forgotten about it. I didn't forget anymore. Margaret met me at her office on a Tuesday morning. She was small, sharp-eyed, and she listened to everything I said without interrupting once. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment, then she said, "Mrs. Holden, I want you to go home and find every financial document from your marriage. Tax returns, bank statements, business records, anything with your name or signature on it. Can you do that?" I could. I had boxes in my basement that nobody had ever thought to ask about. Richard was sloppy about paperwork. I was not. 40 years of habit. What Margaret found inside those boxes changed everything. She found my name on the original business formation documents for Holden Logistics. She found joint tax returns going back to 1987, returns that listed me as a co-contributor to household income during years when Richard's company was not yet profitable and my nursing salary was keeping us alive. She found letters. She found records. She found proof that I had not just supported this man. I had funded him, and then she found something else, something Richard had apparently forgotten. A clause in an old partnership agreement, written in 2004, when Richard took on an investor, that listed me as a silent equity partner. It had been bundled into legal paperwork, signed and notarized, and then buried. Richard's team of 6 lawyers had apparently missed it. Margaret had not. The probate hearing was held on a Thursday in June 2023, at the Cook County Courthouse. Daniel arrived with Tiffany and 2 attorneys. Cassandra arrived with her own legal team. They were confident. They were dressed well. They barely looked at me. Margaret was calm. She presented the documentation in layers. Methodically. Without drama. She didn't perform. She just laid out the evidence, piece by piece, like someone building a wall. The equity clause. The tax records. The business formation documents. A financial analysis showing that my nursing income had directly financed the early years of Holden Logistics, the years that mattered most, before investors arrived. She argued, clearly and precisely, that under Illinois law, the marital contributions I had made could not simply be dissolved by a divorce settlement that had been negotiated under incomplete disclosure. And then she said 4 words that I felt in my chest. My client was defrauded. The room got very quiet. I looked at Daniel. He was staring at the table. Tiffany was whispering something in his ear. Cassandra's attorney was writing furiously. It took 3 more months. There were negotiations. There were counter-filings. Richard's estate attorneys tried 3 different strategies to minimize my claim. None of them worked. In September 2023, I received a settlement of $8.4 million from the estate of Richard Holden. I remember sitting in Margaret's office when she told me the final number. I didn't scream. I didn't jump. I just took a long, slow breath. $8.4 million, for 30 years of getting up before dawn. For night shifts and skipped vacations and soup alone on a couch. For a wedding dress I still kept in a garment bag because some part of me never quite let go. For all of it. Daniel called me a week after the settlement. He didn't apologize. He said he was surprised by how things turned out. He said he hoped we could move forward. I told him I loved him. Because I do. He is my son and that will never change, but I also told him something I had been rehearsing for a long time. Daniel, I never needed your protection. I needed your loyalty. There's a difference. He was quiet for a very long time after that. I sold the house in Naperville in November 2023. I bought a small place near Sarasota, Florida, nothing fancy, but the light is incredible in the mornings and there's a coffee shop 2 blocks away where the owner knows my order. I still work. Not because I have to. Because nursing is who I am, but now I work 2 days a week, on my schedule, on my terms, and every morning, when I sit on my porch with my coffee and watch the sun come up over the water, I think about what Margaret said to me on that very first Tuesday in her office. She said, "The law doesn't always move fast. But it moves." She was right. If this story resonated with you, share it. Someone out there needs to hear it. And remember, your name on a document means something. Your years mean something. You mean something.